Come on, here.
Man, how many steelhead have I caught now? My knees shake, everything shakes. Yeah! Whoa!
You know my Uncle Wayne?
Uncle Wayne, yes, I do. Yes, I'm from here, yeah. But my mother was a school teacher, and when she was a school teacher in Kitkatla, there was only one teacher, and she taught all the classes. I'll never forget this evening or this day. It will be with me wherever I go. I will always be proud to be Kitkatla.
Overlooking the waters of Tofino Harbor, inside a traditional Indian longhouse, lies the heart and soul of Roy Vickers. The images reflect the man, his heritage, his concerns, his love of the natural world. Roy Vickers is an accomplished and successful artist. He's also a man of many passions. His family, wife Rhonda and young son William, are a constant joy. Fishing is another great obsession, and it's more than just the thrill of the hunt.
Oh, what a beauty.
There's a spiritual side to it that runs very deep. Success as an artist has brought material benefits too, like the Eagle Dancer. The boat gives Roy access to some of the most beautiful waters in the world. It also brings him close to the eagles that mean so much to him, the symbols of his clan.
This is the first time
I've worked with Roy on several publishing projects. I've learned that when you're a colleague of Roy Vickers, you're also a friend. And I'm very happy to call him one of mine. My name's Ken Budd. The journey began for Roy Vickers in the mid-1940s in the tiny North Coast Indian village of Kitkatla.
As soon as I started to walk, we walked down the beach here, out to the rock. Our house used to be an old schoolhouse on the point, and the rock was about 100 yards from the house. We had a life without radio or television or electricity for the most part. So our entertainment was reading and dreaming. So I'm a daydreamer by almost occupation. Lots of practice at it. And Eagle Rock was my place to come and think about what was out there in the world, or what would I ever be able to do in my life. I would spend so many hours out here on the rock that I'd forget what the tide was doing, because Mom would always say, if you're going out to Eagle Rock, you watch the tides. I don't want to be waiting out in that cold water to get you boys off the rock. And of course, we'd forget about the tide sometime. And we'd play games like looking into the sky to see what shapes we could see in the clouds. I mean, hours would pass by and we'd be playing around on this little beach. And we'd get stuck.
Roy's parents came from two different worlds. His mother was an English schoolteacher, his father an Indian fisherman. In the 1940s, it was a highly unusual match, but the bond was a strong one, and they raised a happy and secure family. When Roy was 8 years old, the family left Kitkatla for Hazelton, 200 miles up the Skeena River. Arthur and Grace Vickers felt the larger community would give their children a better education. They were right, of course. 8 years later, the family moved again, this time south to Victoria. The change was profound. For the children, the new surroundings were strange and frightening.
I just thank my parents for having the understanding of the difficulty that especially my brother Art and I were going through, to let us go back to Kitkatla in the summers. So I went back every 17 years old, 18 years old, I went back to Kitkatla and I fished with my grandfather for the whole summer. So I got the city and the high school. We went to Oak Bay in Victoria. And at that time I didn't realize it, but I was the only Indian kid in the whole high school. I didn't even know what an Indian was.
It was a difficult time for a 17-year-old. But slowly Roy became determined to understand his Northwest Coast Indian heritage.
My art teacher let me leave art class and go to the provincial archives. I had to bring reports back. My social studies teacher let me go down to any contribution I could give to the social studies class in Oak Bay High, I was allowed to do. And I combined the both, drawing, sketching, and then giving my report to the social studies class. And the reception of the students gave me a quest or a goal in life, and that was to learn as much about this incredible art and culture from the Northwest Coast and share it with as many possible people as I could.
Roy left high school filled with a mission to find his roots and the art of his ancestors, men like his great-grandfather Amos Collinson. By night, he explored his heritage and practiced his art. By day, he was a fireman and later an ambulance attendant. For 7 long years, the search went on. In 1972, Roy Vickers took a major step towards becoming an artist. He enrolled at the Giddenmack School of Northwest Coast Indian Art at Kassan.
Kassan is in Hazelton, so I got to go back to Hazelton. And I spent 2 years with people that I knew very well, and studying in depth. And it was almost like cultural immersion, because I wanted to learn some of the language, the songs that I learned to sing and dance and carve. So everything all together and live in Hazelton. So I came out of there in 1974 just gung-ho. Nobody was going to stop me. I began working with limited edition prints, and I realized I had to make money with my artwork. So all of a sudden, the pressure was on to be more professional. Those first few limited edition prints that I did were all traditional work, traditional stylized Northwest Coast Indian art, as ethnologists call it. And the Tsimshian man and the Tsimshian woman, even though they were traditional stylized pieces, they were not a bear or an eagle or a wolf. They were two faces. Immediately, with those two faces, I realized that I could never be a traditional Northwest Coast Indian artist, because I live in Canada today, and the culture that spawned that art style and form is gone forever. And the culture that I live in almost needs me to express myself as part of that culture as an artist living and working today. So I began to have this inner struggle. I painted The Creation of Eve. That's got nothing to do with traditional Northwest Coast Indian art. And that was the comments that I got, because people wanted me to work as a traditional Northwest Coast Indian artist. So I have this conflict continuously. It just will not stop. So I did a piece called An Identification with the Crucifixion. Then I redid that in 1985, and I called it Easter 1985. And again, it was totally non-traditional subject matter, but traditional Northwest Coast Indian art. So the conflicts continued and the struggle continued.
It was an agonizing time for young Roy Vickers, but there were some diversions, including an unexpected one, some acting work on The Beachcombers.
They wanted me to play the part of the grandson of Chief Dan George. Well, Dan's a friend of the family, or was a friend of the family for many years. I did 3 shows on The Beachcombers with Dan, and got to spend a lot of time with him. And I used to tease him. I would imitate his voice. So on the Beachcomber set, we had to learn some paddling songs. And Dan was teaching us the songs off camera. So we'd come on camera, and of course we'd seem like we knew these songs since we were kids. And Dan had just taught us to him on the set. And he sings in a very deep voice, and there's water coming and the ocean waves lapping, and it's all close to my heart. And he sings like this. Wanina, Wanina, hai, hai, hai. This is his introduction to his centennial speech. Oh, Canada, how long have I known you? 100 years? Yes, and many, many years more. It's just beautiful richness and power of his voice. I use it, I sing, I play a guitar, and I have sung with him. He plays guitar, and I'll sing a Gordon Lightfoot song, The Old Man. There's a song about the old man come home from the forest. I'll sing that in Chief Dan George's voice, and cry, all by myself in the room, singing Dan's song, and tears coming down my face, just remembering his friendship and enjoying him. It's like having him come back to me. When I was working on the Beachcombers, I was working as an artist, but I was very unsure of myself. And I'd take my work on the set and show Dan and talk to him about it. And he'd say in this beautiful, warm, wise voice, Roy, you have a gift. It's yours. You have to share it with people. Whatever you do, do it from your heart. Not from here, but from here. Wise words. And that's the way I work today. I paint from inspiration. The inspiration doesn't come from some intellect that I have, it comes from a feeling that I have for whatever is happening, whether it's sitting on the dock at Fisherman's Wharf in Victoria looking at the city, or looking for my hotel room window and seeing the lights in the harbor. They're all images that move me, and I'm compelled to do something with the feelings, to communicate them to somebody else.
But the unique style that Roy would call his own was still a couple of years away. In 1979, he made a complete break from his art. With a couple of friends, he went commercial fishing. It happened that one of their frequent stops for food and fuel was the harbor at Tofino. And it was there that Roy had an encounter that would change his life.
I met a friend, Henry Nola, who I'd met in Victoria. He was a carver, half Swedish and half Spanish. Henry wanted me to stay for the winter. This was September 1980. The fishing season was over. It was a dismal year. So needless to say, I was in a very good frame of mind to want to get back to what I did best and what I was the most happy doing, and I was to get back to carving and painting. And Henry wanted to learn how to carve totem poles. So he talked me into staying the winter. And by Christmas time in 1980, I've literally, walking on the beach, felt roots going into the ground. I found that I felt like I belonged somewhere. It was exciting. I felt like that little kid that I was in Kitkatla, like the little kid in Hazelton. And it was that sense of wonder with the whole world around me seemed to come back fresher than it ever had been in my whole life.
Looking good, Henry.
Henry and I working together on something like this, it brings us back to the bond and brings me back to why I came here and why I enjoy living here so much. Because each time we tackle a new project, Henry's there, I'm there. That's the way it's always been since I've been in this town. I don't know what I'd do without him.
Well, one more day.
The experience of leaving everything that I knew about the art world and everything that I could do and going fishing for 2 years solid, then winding up in Tofino and feeling comfortable and at home, gave me the confidence. And I grew up with confidence, but I needed the confidence to do something that I didn't. It's like walking into a completely dark room and you don't know where anything is, and you put your hands out and you take a step. Oh, okay, this is all right. And that's what I was doing. I just was taking a step into the unknown.
The breakthrough came in the space of 4 paintings. It was 1982. Roy painted 4 canoes, representing the 4 seasons. The first was the West Coasters. It was a theatrical piece, but still with strong traditional elements. The winter painting was Elegy, a tribute to his grandfather. It was Roy's first complete scene, with sky, water, and trees. Then came fall. Chief's dream showed 4 traditional figures: an eagle, a whale, a raven, and a wolf. This was the departure point. It was almost as though Roy was saying a last farewell to traditional art.
That led me to want to paint summer. I wanted to paint a sunset. I remembered the hundreds of slides that I had of sunsets. And here I am thinking, well, how am I going to do this? Just, how do you paint a sunset? If you've never painted a sunset, how would you do it? So I looked at the other 3. I looked at West Coasters especially, and there were form lines going through the water and negative space. So I took the form lines of the waves in the West Coasters piece, and I separated the colors, red, orange, yellow, light blue to dark blue, because I couldn't conceive of how to blend those colors together like you actually see them. So they're separated with wisps of gray cloud. And I called it West Coast Sunset. So when I finished that piece, I was emotionally too close to it, so I left it, walked away, came back to it the next day or the day after. There it sat, and I liked it, still like it. So I knew then that I could paint whatever I felt like painting, and I was off, and I still am now. It'll never stop. It's the fascination to look at something and want to interpret it in my language as a painter will always be there for the rest of my life. The whole idea of designing a building that I could house my prints in made me think, well, the longhouses had no windows. They had a little opening through the front door that you had to go through. So, oh, that would be good for a gallery because you could take all the latest technology and lighting and use it and create your own mood. So I began dreaming of building a longhouse and adding the cedar and hanging the pictures and having the light. I could see it all in my mind. So we opened the gallery, called it Eagle Aerie. I'm an eagle. My crest that I'm born into is the eagle. Hence eagles in all of my work. I mean, I love eagles. They're my brothers and sisters. Art is priceless. The only price that you can put on it is what someone will pay for it. So as an artist, I was always confronted with this, who am I to say how much money I want for this piece? And I always wound up answering it by, well, how much do I need right now? And that works for me, but it doesn't work for a business. And 2 years ago, everything had gotten totally out of control for me. The books were a mess. Everything was a mess. And I was looking for a business manager.
Good afternoon, Eagle Aerie Gallery. Well, George, how are you doing? I'm good. I'm always good.
I had made Graham's acquaintance already. Graham, at this time, was with the Continental Bank, Lloyd's Bank in Victoria. So I got on the phone and called Graham, and the rest is history.
If it's on the bottom of Siwash, it's not going to be the cyan or the black. I'd say it's probably the blue. George, maybe I should come over to Vancouver.
Graham has taken the business weight and responsibilities off of my shoulders.
Okay, good. I'll be over
he keeps
Tuesday.
me in touch every week.
And then I'll see you Tuesday morning.
He makes all of the decisions as to where money goes, how much money can be spent, how much we can afford to spend on fixing up whatever has to be fixed up, renovations to the building.
The little gallery in Tofino that nobody had ever heard of began to thrive. Word of mouth brought a steady stream of visitors, and the orders for prints and posters grew steadily. Business was good.
That limited edition print is $2,500 framed.
Then a new venture, a book of the artwork and writings of Roy Vickers. That's where I came in.
When I first began speaking with Ken Budd, who talked me into doing the first book, Solstice, Graham had to come in and sit down, and Graham could talk to Ken about whatever was happening, because to me it was all just a dream. Another one of those dreams. And they brought that dream to reality. We had 8,000 copies and sold 8,000 copies in 1 year. Now that's a Canadian bestseller as far as I know.
You do the honors now.
Solstice was a big success, but there was another part to the dream, a special limited edition of the book, prepared with the very finest materials. It's still a matter of pride for us to look through it together. gold foil stamping.
Nice ribs. We wanted to bind it in leather, but we didn't know what. And one day we were walking through a specialty store in Vancouver, and Ken picked up a little salmon skin wallet. And I looked at it, and I saw the book covered with the salmon skin. And so a special limited edition salmon skin bound book of Solstice was produced, and we chose the image that I love to create so much of the eagle in the moon.
Roy's happiness became complete when he met Rhonda. After a 5-month courtship, much of it by long-distance phone, they were married.
We love the same things, the same music, and especially the same son. I have a 3-month-old boy, and he's just wonderful. If life can get any better, I'm not sure how it can.
Roy's reputation and popularity as an artist continues to grow. He still releases each new work in a limited edition of 50 silkscreen prints, or serigraphs. One of his most recent successes was his Vancouver series.
I thought of Vancouver. I thought of the hours that I spent walking from shop to shop. I thought of everything that Vancouver meant to me. I thought of a poem or a book that E. Pauline Johnson wrote. I couldn't remember the book, but I remembered a legend, the legend of Siwash Rock. And she tells of her first sighting of Siwash Rock. It was etched as a large granite stone against a crimson sunset. A visual painting for me. I see it in my mind. I began to paint Siwash Rock, and Ken Budd came in, and I began telling him about this book, and he said, yes, that's the Legends of Vancouver. So away he went. He left, and he came back a couple of hours later, and he had a little paperback copy of The Legends of Vancouver by E. Pauline Johnson. I flipped it open and read the introduction to Siwash Rock. The first time I saw Siwash Rock etched against the crimson sunset, it was like a great totem of granite. I looked at Ken, and he looked at me, and it was his emotion just welled, tears came to my eyes, and goosebumps. Powerful, powerful experience. But that opened up another whole new world for me. So, well, Vancouver really is a very beautiful and special place. My mother grew up here. You just don't realize sometimes as you're walking through an area just how special that area is to you. Every chance I get, I call up Tofino Airlines. Gary knows exactly where I want to go. He's taken me many times. He never gets to fish with me himself. Usually it's Graham or Charlie that are with me. And he always enjoys, it's one of his favorite flights to take me fishing to the Megan. Thank you, Gary. Super. Clayoquot Sound has one of the few watersheds that are left untouched on the west coast of Vancouver Island.
I hear more rapids.
So the best steelhead fishing river in the world, in my humble but experienced opinion, is the Megan River. It's the way God made it. It's never been touched, and it's absolutely the most beautiful place in the world.
Have you seen any movement?
I've caught fish in every pool in that river. You can take your canoe from the beginning of the river to where it ends in the ocean. So you know that if they're in the river, you're going to find them sooner or later.
Woo! Yeah! Oh, what a beauty. Oh.
Got his tail?
I got him.
Okay.
Oh, whoa.
Oh, what a beauty. Oh, it's still hooked on him.
There we go. It's all yours, Roy. I got him by the tail. You got him?
Yep.
Okay.
What would you figure, Graham?
18, 17 pounds, something like that. What a fish, Roy.
Part of Roy's love of nature is a deep concern for the environment. He did this painting, Pacific Sands, to raise money for whale research. And a piece called Carmana was Roy's contribution to the preservation of old-growth forests.
I produce limited edition prints. At one point, my prints sold for $100. Today, they sell for $1,000. But I don't increase the edition of my prints because I can make more money. I keep it where it is because I can keep the quality up. If we took our logging practices and applied that same principle, we would suffer for a few years, but the world would soon realize that the best timber comes from British Columbia, the best timber available in the world. And yet we feel that we have to compete with the world market and sell it for the best price that the consumer will pay. Well, that's not business to me. Business is to take only the best of the timber and leave the rest. We have enough pulp, we have enough newspapers in the world to, if they were recycled, to supply some newspapers till hell freezes over. And we have enough timber, good timber left to supply a very select market for generations. If we keep clear cutting, we have enough timber to last a generation. We need to stop clear cutting. God help us if we don't, and God help us face it as soon as we can. Save our trees, save the mature growth, the mature forest.
Much of Roy Vickers' feeling for the natural world is born of his culture, his heritage. It began by the seashore in Kitkatla, where he played as a boy, where he sat on Eagle Rock and watched the tides, the whales, and the birds. Recently, he found the perfect opportunity to go back. The grade 2 and 3 class at the school in Kitkatla had sent Roy some pictures they had drawn for him. It touched his heart, and there was really only one way to respond.
God, look at them all.
Hi, Cecil. Uncle Cecil.
Hello. Hi. How are you?
Hi, Cecil.
Hi. Good to see you. Hi. Hi. How's your dad?
Who's Dad?
Her dad is George, eh? Yeah. So how are you all?
Fine.
Good.
How many days you staying out here?
2. Today and tomorrow. And we leave early Friday morning.
We like your pictures.
You do? Well, I like your pictures too.
Are you coming in our class?
Yes.
When is your birthday?
My birthday is June the 4th.
Mine's August 26th.
A baby? Another one? So I'm going to have another cousin? You know who brought Cecil when he was born? Do you know whose face he saw first? My mom. Grace. Mrs. Grace Vickers.
Right.
She's a school teacher too. My mother was a school teacher, and when she was a school teacher in Kitkatla, there was only one teacher and she taught all the classes. In one room.
She was the only teacher?
Mm-hmm. My baby's name is William Roy Henry Vickers. Your great-grandfather's name was Henry. Did you know that?
No.
Henry Vickers. He was my grandfather, and that's why my second name's Henry.
Where is he?
He died a long time ago. Great.
The reason they are saying that is because earlier today we were talking about how this very settlement has been here for 5,000 years. And so we were trying to go back how many great-grandparents that would be that lived here, and it was a lot of greats, wasn't it?
Yeah.
There's another story I can tell you about a seal. When we lived in the house that was right where the school was, we used to have a little rowboat that was about 10 feet long. And my brother Art and I used to row around in the bay here, right out by Eagle Rock there. And we had this pet seal, and it used to follow us everywhere. I can't remember why it was a pet, but it was really tame. And we used to take the rope, the bow rope from the boat, and we tied a loop in the rope about this big, and the seal, and dropped it into the water, and the seal put its head in it, and it used to tow us around the bay out here.
Can you read that on Where's Kitkatla?
Can I read Where's Kitkatla? Sure I can. When I was a young man living in Victoria, I was really homesick, because when we lived in Victoria, we used to come back here and go fishing with Grandpa or my Uncle Johnny, but every fall we had to go back to Victoria. So I got really homesick for Kitkatla. So many times I sat in solitude overlooking the ocean, wondering who I was and why in the world I was in this big city. Where is Kitkatla? And today when I visit Victoria, as I often do, I realize that Kitkatla is always with me. If I was going to do an eagle, I would start with his head, and his beak comes almost right off the top of his head, and it curves down like this. Oh, you guys are doing really well. Are you an eagle? Yeah? You got some of your dad's talent, don't you?
Yeah.
He's a good artist, too. Try another one right beside it, maybe a little smaller. Do a whole flock of eagles. Okay, we're all going to look at Inez and smile on 3, okay? 1, 2, 3. This woman here in the picture was the wife of my great-grandfather, and he was a Kanhara chief. Do you all know what Kanhara is? Raven? So the thing that I'm proud of is the fact that my roots go back as far back as yours do in Kitkatla here. And when I left here when I was a kid and moved to Hazelton and then down to Victoria, I started to explore my background, especially my dad's background, which is all Kitkatla. And I developed a pride in my heritage and an interest in the art of the Northwest Coast Indians. And I wound up going up to Kasan and studying for 2 years there. And ever since then, I've been working professionally as an artist and getting more attention all the time. 2 years ago, a painting of mine was given to the Queen in Vancouver. And that's brought a lot more attention to what I'm doing.
The The town where Roy Vickers spent his boyhood has changed in many ways, but the old Kitkatla and the traditional values are still here, perhaps a little below the surface now. But they began to show themselves that evening as the people of Kitkatla gathered for the first of 2 community dinners to welcome Roy home.
My brothers and sisters, Brother Roy, we hope that your stay here will be one that you will always remember, that you will never forget. So once again, I just want to say it's so good to see each and every one of you come out here tonight to share in this meal with our Brother Roy. And thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen, honored guests, boys and girls, I am the chief of the Kitkatla of the Raven tribe. In 1944, I received this blanket when Henry Collison passed on. He was also a chief of the Kitkatla. He was Roy's uncle. Our forefathers lived there under a very strong tradition. Our culture was respected. However, intrusion came. And the changes in our lives began to take place. In spite of our problems, some of our people made it and became successful. Proud to say that I noticed myself that Roy was one of them. Roy, you are a prime example to our children. We are proud of you. God bless you and good luck. Thank you.
Shemorget, hail. Shemorget, hail. I stand here tonight with not only a full stomach, but a very full heart. It's so full that it's difficult for me to get the words out to you. I'm proud to be Lachlan Tumtien. I'm proud to be an Englishman. I thank my father and all of his generations before him for giving me the special gift that I share with each and every one of you here tonight. I thank God for my mother, who also has given me special gifts. I thank the children of Lachlan School for asking me to come and visit. I thank you all for giving me this great honor. I'll never forget this evening or this day. It will be with me wherever I go. I will always be proud to be Kitkatla. Thank you.
When I decided to return the children's letters, their invitation, by coming up here personally, I had no idea the effect that it would have on the village of Kitkatla. I just didn't think. And you wonder at the capacity of your heart sometimes. Yesterday it just felt like it kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. When I look at the children today, when I think of what Wilfred Jackson had to say last night, standing there with his chief's robe on, I realize that, to me, this morning, for instance, there was a phone call came over the CB in the house, and somebody said, "Is the Shemoigit there?" And Shemoigit in our language is the chief. And I realize that many of the people here look upon me as a leader or an example or a chief. As I began to work as an artist and learned to do these drawings, then I learned to use an architect's scale and blow things up and work, and I used a lot of the drafting skills that I used in high school. This is the fun stuff, actually making the things. The work for me was always putting it down on paper and then making it work in something practical. Is this a coffee table?
Yeah. Nick for my sister.
Oh, great. Is she Kispedwada?
Yep.
I'll show you a trick there if you want.
Mm-hmm.
When you're coming down the side of this, just turn it around so you can come down really close. I came out here in 1974, and I was a hard-working artist just straight out of the Gittin-Mac School of Northwest Coast Indian Art at Kasan. And I got a group of people together, and we painted the front of the council house here. I painted the 4 tribes of the council house, and I was home. And being able to come back and walk out to Eagle Rock, I lay over top of that rock and I just wept. And I wasn't sad. There was nostalgia, but I wept because I was thankful for being here. I was thankful for how people had helped me throughout my life. I was thankful to God for his gifts and thankful to myself for doing something with them.
What I'm trying to do is trying to set up a communication, I guess you might call it, or a better relation, you know, between us and Roy, so we can work better together and help each other's out.
I was brought up in this village, brought up in a Christian home, and for years and years and years, almost believed that anything to do with our old culture and our old ways was wrong. And I began to realize that our heritage and our culture is important to us. There are many inherent natural ways of our personalities. And for those of us who grow up not knowing anything about that culture, there are parts of us that are difficult to understand. And for me, it was an awareness of the culture combined with my spirituality as a Christian that helped me through the difficult times.
You told me just a while ago that you came here where you can learn our culture firsthand.
Yeah.
Our culture is not written, and it's pretty hard to transform Tsimshian into English. Johnson's good at this, to try and really transform what you mean. You can't do that in English. But if you know Tsimshian, I know that you do, then the meaning is, if I talk to you in my language, then you will understand what I'm really trying to say. What Roy is doing is a real good example to our kids. And that way the kids are going to go forward as themselves, as Indians, and say, okay, I'm just as good as the next guy.
The final night of Roy's visit, and again the community turns out to honor him with all the finest delicacies Kitkatla has to offer.
I kept looking up, told him, I said, that stupid island is going further away all the time. Well, paddle harder so it'll come closer. Then we got to Gin Island there, bailed the canoe out, and Brother Johnson there happened to be there on his boat. He offered to tow us home. And no, Roy was so determined to row home, you know. We'll make it on our own, you know. I'm running through my mind. Speak for yourself, Roy. So we look forward to your visit again, back to our village. And say hello to the rest of your family from all of us here. And in closing, this is not goodbye, but till we meet again. Thank you very much.
Yesterday, I mentioned the strength and the respect our ancestors had to our culture. That's how our people survived for thousands and thousands of years. And our language is the very foundation to our culture. You will not understand what our culture is unless you use the language. Roy did this. I was quite pleased today of the meeting that we had with him this afternoon. We got to know each other better. I like to say this to Roy. Hang on to the image that you have. You have developed a beautiful image that our people respect. Don't let success mar, hinder your image. Go forward, proud and with pride. Thank you very much.
I would like to introduce to you our brother Roy Vickers.
We all have something to share, and it's sievens, I think the word is, in Somalia. Love. Everything that I do out of a desire to communicate with the world around me. That world goes beyond this village. When I speak as a Kitkatla. When I work as a Kitkatla. And if only one person in this hall is inspired to excel beyond their dreams, I'll be happy. I'll be proud. I can't say goodbye because I know that there is no Somalia for goodbye. So I will say thank you from the bottom of my heart. And the Algich needs me. I'll see you again. Thank you.
Back home in Tofino, Roy works to complete a new painting. He calls it "The Elders Are Watching." That feeling now seems closer to him than ever before. The painting coincides with a new book of his work, and already it's begun to attract a lot of attention. But perhaps the most exciting and challenging project of all lies ahead. Roy has been asked by the Ministry of Transport to develop an architectural design theme for the interiors of the Vancouver International Airport.
They had seen Solstice. They enjoyed the images very much, and it was brought to their attention that this is the West Coast. Could we actually have an airport that is unique in Canada, that when people step off a plane, they immediately are greeted by the West Coast all around them in the building? A very exciting project for the owners of the Vancouver International Airport and for someone like myself.
With his painting, his books, and now the airport project, Roy Vickers faces a demanding schedule.
Come on, baby.
But there's always time to answer the call of the Spirit. It lies out there across the water with the eagles, wild and free.
Roy, you have a gift. It's yours. You have to share it with people. Whatever you do, do it from your heart.
You have developed a beautiful image that our people respect. Don't let success mar, hinder your image. Go forward, proud with pride.